Hi guys, and welcome to Artflow channel. In this video we're gonna talk about groups, layers and alignment in Adobe Illustrator. And yes, so that's quite complicated but interesting topic, so without further ado, let's get started. First of all, let's talk about layers, because this is one of the most important panels in the whole Adobe Illustrator and you need to understand how to work with this. Let's create a new document where we can take a look at how it works, because as you can see, whenever you create an object, you can't see basically anything, it's only a square. Let's make it purple as usual, let's remove this stroke, and now as you can see we have one square. But what if I create one more? For example, the second one is going to be not purple, it's going to be dark purple, and now we have two objects. But for example, you want to distribute them in another way. For example, this one should be under the purple object. How you can do that? Quite simple if you use Layers panel. Let me show you. Over here on the right side of our screen, you can see that we have Layers panel. If you do not have it, you can go to Window and find this Layers panel over here. Let's open this one. And as you can see, we have this small window. For education purpose, let's make it bigger, because right now it's quite small and for me it's quite complicated to show how it works exactly. So let's just bring it out from this section. Let's make it floating over here. I will hide artboard section, and as you can see we have this layers panel over here. Let me turn on mouse hover so you can see my mouse better, as well as my hotkeys that I'll use a lot in this video. Perfect, now we have everything. Let's expand this panel so we can see it better. I'm just scrolling down this one, and as you can see we have this beautiful panel. It's quite different from Photoshop layers panel, because in Photoshop you might be quite used to using layers, but here it's quite different because instead of layers we're working with different objects, and each object that you create has a different place inside those layers. Let me show you in a better way. If you expand this section, clicking on this triangle, you can see that we have two objects. First object is this light purple box and the second one is dark purple. Let's make it in a different color so it's gonna be better for us. Let it be orange and purple. Okay, so now as you can see we have two objects, purple and orange. And over here, you can change which object is gonna be above or under the other object. So you can click with your left mouse button, hold and just drag it to the bottom part over here. In that way, you can change order of your objects and you can work with this. As well as you can create multiple objects. For example, I will duplicate them one more time. I have this object, let's make it blue. This object, let's make it, for example, green. And we have a lot of different boxes over here. Now, you can change order of those objects quite easily. Again, just hold left mouse button and move it until you see this blue horizontal line over here, and then you can release your mouse button. That's how you know that you can release it. If you will not see this blue horizontal line, it means that you cannot move it over there. So you need to tell the software where you want to release this object, for example right between this purple and green box, and release it over here. That's how it works. Okay, now as you can see we have a lot of those objects, but they are quite different to see. For example, if we will have them as purple boxes, and you'll have a question, okay, which object is which? How I can understand what's going on over here in the document, because in real project you can see a lot of stuff over here and it can be quite messy. So you need to understand how to rename those layers and groups, and we'll talk about this later. But how to rename them? You can just double click on the name, for example double click on rectangle, and change the name to first object, for example, or I don't know, logo. For example, it's gonna be logo. The second one is gonna be icon. This one is gonna be text or whatever. Just make it in a different name. And this one, for example, I don't know, triangle. Okay, now we have different objects. And it's quite easy for you to understand which one is which. And if you want to choose, for example, triangle object, you don't need to find it over here. You can just click on this circle icon on the right part, and it's gonna select it in the whole project. So in that way you can understand that you selected this triangle and you don't need to find it over here on the artboard page, because things can get really messy over here. So please use this feature, it's quite useful. Now let's talk about different stuff. How you can hide some objects. Let's recolor them once more time so you can see them better. For example, we have those different color objects and you want to hide this green square. To make it work, just click on this icon button over here, click, and now you can hide or unhide this object. Objects that are hidden will not be displayed on the final export, they will not be printed, so everything that is hidden will be hidden forever. You will not see it in the final export files. But it can be quite useful for you if you, for example, want to hide something or reveal it in the work process. For example, you have different versions of the logo, but you don't want to see all of them at once, so you can just hide some versions and then you can reveal them anytime. So that's how you can work with this small icon, hiding and revealing the object. Now, let's talk about different stuff. For example, you want to create a new layer, because right now, as you can see, we have only one layer, this one. And what if you want to create a second one? For example, if you're working with the characters, for example, this one, you can tell that we have a lot of objects over here. And when you will export those files for animation, you need to make sure that you have all objects organized correctly. Your logo should be on one layer, text should be on another layer, some icons maybe needs to be on a third layer, and etc. So, to make a second layer, you need to click on this plus icon, and that's all. Now you have a second layer. To move objects to this second layer, just drag and drop them, and that's all. Now you have layer 1 and layer 2. And the good thing about this is whenever you select those objects, you can see that you have border with a different color. For example, this object has a red border and this one has blue border. It's up to those layer colors so that you created. And if you will move, for example, this green object to the layer 2, which has red color, now it became red as well. So if you see that your objects are in different colors, it means that they are placed on different layers. And this is quite important because you need to make sure that you have all objects placed into correct layers. Now, let's remove this second layer and let me show you how you can move those objects easily without opening layers panel, because while you will work in the Adobe Illustrator, probably you will not use this panel all the time. You will go to this panel only at the end of your projects, when you want to save it, organize it, and make sure that everything is fine over here. Mostly you will work with this panel hidden, like this, and you need to understand how you can change position of your objects, how you can change their distribution, and that's quite easily. Let me show you one more time. As you can see, now we have a lot of different boxes. They are quite unorganized here, and for example, I want to move this purple object to the top of layers panel. Let me open this panel for you so you can see what's going on over here. Let's select this purple box, and now I want to take it from the bottom part to the top part. I'm just gonna click Command and close bracket key, and as you can see, I moved my object to the top in one position. If I'm gonna press those buttons one more time, Command and close bracket key, as you can see, one more time, it's going to the top. If I'm gonna press opening bracket key, I'm gonna move them to the down. You can see icons over here on the left part of the screen, and those icons are Command and the key that I'm pressing. Command is Control on Windows, so moving down, moving up. And that's how you can organize your objects quite easily without opening layer panel. Now, what if you have really a lot of objects, hundreds and thousands? You will not press all the time Command and this key because it's gonna be boring and you'll spend too much time. But how you can move this object from the very bottom, for example from this position, to the very top? You need to press Command, Shift, and close bracket key. Command, Shift, close bracket. Now I moved to the very top of my layer panel. Now Command, Shift, and opening bracket key, it's gonna move it to the down. So it's basically the same hotkey combination. I'm just pressing Shift to make sure that it's go to the very bottom or to the very top. Now we have everything organized. And if you notice, you can move your objects only within one layer. For example, now I have layer 1 and layer 2. I have some objects over here, and I want to move this triangle to the very top. I want to place it higher than this green icon. Let's try. Selected this object, now Command, Shift and close bracket keys, and as you can see, nothing happened because this layer is above, and as you can see, I cannot move with this hotkey combination to the second layer. I can move only within my layer that I'm located right now. If I want to move this object further to the top, I need to move it from one layer to the second layer manually, or you need to change order of those layers so this layer is gonna be above the previous one. That's the only way how you can organize your stuff. If you're not using layers, you need to open it and then change order. That's why mostly you will not use layers while you're working. You will use them only at the end of your production, when you see that you need to have different objects located on different layers, for example for animation, and for other purposes you're gonna leave it everything on one layer and you will just have a lot of different objects and groups. Now I hope that's quite easy for you to understand. Let's talk about second stuff. Let's assume that you have a character. Let's create this one. We have some eyes. Let's change color from white to light gray. For example, this one. Now I'll make a copy. Command C, Command F. Now I have a copied object. So basically I have two of the same objects over here. I'm gonna shrink it down, clicking Alt and Shift on my keyboard and move it to the center. Now I'll change the color to blue or black. Let's keep it dark gray, okay. And let's move it to somewhere here. Let's create some reflection. The same procedure, Command C, Command F, shrink into the bottom. And this is a reflection. Now we have our first eye, and I want to create a second one. I'll just select everything that I have over here, and I'll press Alt on my keyboard, and I'm gonna move it to the right. Now we have two eyes. Let's create a face for this object. I'm just selecting this ellipse and creating a face. Let's change its color to something like this. Pale beige, okay. And now I want to move this one to the very bottom in our layers panel. So I'm just gonna press Command, Shift and opening brackets key. As you can see, it's done. Now we can easily change those light gray eyes to something whiter, like this one, and everything is ready. Now, whenever you're gonna work with the complex objects, you'll see that mostly you will have some objects that can be grouped, because otherwise it's quite difficult for me to select this eye and move it to the top or bottom or whenever I want, because I'll need to select this object, then holding Shift select this, holding Shift select this, and all the time just to move one object, it's quite complicated. So how you can group your objects so you can select them in one click and move wherever you want? That's quite easy to do. You need to select objects that you want to group, for example this eye, clicking on first object, holding Shift. Now click over here, click to the third object, and now you need to press combination of keys, Command G. As you can see, now we have a new group over here on the right part of our layers panel. What this group actually means? It means that you can, with your black arrow, you can just move it in one click. You don't need to spend any more time to select those objects individually before moving them. You can just click and move, that's all. Because for example here, I cannot do that. I create group over here. Now, if you want to open your group, you need to press this triangle. And as you can see, you have a lot of objects, ellipse, ellipse, and ellipse. If you want to hide the whole group, just click over here, and that's all. Now let's create a second group for this object. Clicking, Shift, click, click. Now Command G to group them. Again, Command, it's Control on Windows, and Option, it's Alt on Windows. Now we have two groups, this eye and this eye. We have also face. We'll not work with this at this time. So let's talk about the second stuff. What if you want to move this black part of the eye to any other place? Let's bring this out of our document so you can see it better. And for example, you want to move this black part somewhere else, but you cannot do that because this object is grouped right now. What you can do? You can select white arrow, and now you can just press with your left mouse button and move it whenever you want. So basically this white arrow allows you to go inside the group, select individual object that you want to select and move it without ungrouping your object. You can just move it without any problems. Second way to do that is more complicated, but sometimes you need to use this one, is when you have this black arrow, this is selection tool, you can move it, as we know already, but you can double click on your object and you'll see that you entered isolation mode. Isolation mode allows you to work with group of objects, so you don't need to worry about anything else, rather your group. For example, let me open this more complicated project, and we have this object as a whole group, but as you can see I have a lot of different stuff around this object. I'm gonna double click on this one, and as you can see everything else but this object, but this group, is grayed out. It means that I cannot interact with anything but this group. And here I can move some stuff, I can remove it, I can double click one more time to go into the group, because as you can see we have group in the group in the group, and it can go infinitely. And over here I have one group for the text, and I have the second group for the object, and I have one more object as a background. So if you want to go inside your group and you want to control some other objects within this group, you can just double click on your object, and now you can move everything that you want. And when you're ready, double click on the outside and you'll exit this isolation mode. At the beginning this is quite complicated, but I'll show you later how to work with this, so you'll see that that's quite easy and you'll use it quite often. So for now, just understand that whenever you have this top bar over here, it means that you double click on some object and you went inside isolation mode, and you can interact only with this group that you double clicked. Now go to the exit, let's move this one to the middle, and let's talk about how you can ungroup your object, because sometimes you don't really need this group anymore and you want to ungroup it to have all objects separately on your layers panel. To ungroup you need to press Command, Shift and G. In that way you can release your group, and that's all. Also you can click right mouse button over here and you can see Command Ungroup. It works also for grouping objects. If you have a lot of objects like I do right now, those are separate objects as you can see, I can group them right clicking, and here I have group option. So that's how it works. Now let's talk about alignment, because this is very important stuff in Adobe Illustrator. To align your objects, you need to understand how it works and which panel is gonna help you with doing that. At the beginning, let's ungroup this eye, because we'll need this ungroup to see how alignment works. Now I have those objects as separate objects. And as you can see on the top part, here is our object settings panel. You can see that we have a lot of icons over here. Those are alignment options. You can see them also in the right part over here if you have Align panel. If you don't have this panel, go to Window and you'll see Align panel. Now, let's open this. I'll move it to the left so you can see it better. And here we have a lot of options to work with. Let's go one by one so you can understand how those works. If you ever worked with Word or Excel or any other software, you might be more familiar with this panel. If you didn't, then okay, let's talk about this in full. So whenever you selected your objects, you can choose which way you want to align them in accordance to each other. For example, over here I have first option, which allows me to align them horizontal line left. Click, and as you can see, all my objects are moved to the very left part of selected box. Over here, everything is stick to this left side. Now I'm gonna press this one, and I'm gonna stick them to the right side. If I press this one, it's gonna be aligned to the middle. And the same works for vertical alignment, to the top, to the middle, to the bottom. So that's quite simple, and that's how you're gonna work with this alignment all the time. If you want to align them to the middle, just press this one and then this one. In that way you can see that all objects are aligned to horizontal and to vertical axis, and that's it. You don't need to do anything else. Now, in terms of this second section, for now we'll skip it because it might be quite complicated for you and I don't want to overwhelm you with a lot of information. So for now we will skip this one and we'll talk about this later in our course, okay? So for now we have alignment to the left, to the middle, to the right, to the top, to the middle, to the bottom. That's all. Now let's talk about how you can align objects using key object as alignment point, because sometimes you want to make sure that you are not moving this one, but you're moving anything else but this one to the middle. How you can do that? Because if I'm just gonna select all of them and I'm gonna press this and this, as you can see, everything is moved to the center of this selection, but I want them to move to the center of this object. I want to make this a main object, a key object, and everything else should be aligned accordingly to this object. I'm gonna press one more time after I selected all the objects. Click. And as you can see, this one selected as a key object. It means that everything else is gonna be aligned using this shape as a base shape. So everything is gonna be aligned accordingly to this space. Let's press first icon, horizontal align center, and everything is gonna be aligned by this axis. Now let's align everything to the horizontal axis, this one. Click. And everything is fine. I can do it in another way. I can click not on this object, I can click on this object, and as you can see now this object is our key object, and I'm gonna select this alignment, so everything is gonna be over here, and this, everything is gonna be over here. That's all. If you want to have a key object for your selection, that's how it works. Now let's talk about some interesting stuff, because sometimes you have more complex situation. In our case, let's make this one more dark. For example, this one. And in some situations, you want to align a couple of objects to the middle of main one. Right now, I have two eyes and I have a face. If I want to align every object to the middle of this face, what I'm gonna do? You'll see that you need to select this face, everything is selected right now, both eyes and the face, and now you need to click to the face one more time to make it a key object, and now you need to press this icon because it helps to align vertically. Even it says horizontal, don't worry, it's better to remember that it helps you to align vertically. And now click on this one, and we have a problem. We have a problem because each group has its own anchor point. Literally, it's your middle point of your group over here, and you have the same middle point of your group over here. And whenever you're aligning those groups to the object, it does whatever it says. It's just aligning those middle points to the center. Right now we have two objects for the software, and we have a third object as a key object. So it's gonna just align everything to the middle. That's why everything collapses. To make it better, to make it work, to have possibility to align both eyes without collapsing them together, you need to create a second group. In that way, just select those two groups, press Command G, and now you have group with two groups inside. What it does, it creates for the software invisible anchor point over here, right in the middle of those groups, which allows you to align those groups to the middle of the face. Let's try one more time. As you can see, I have both eyes grouped into one group, and now I'm gonna select those eyes, I'm gonna select this face. Without shift, I'm just gonna click one more time. This one is a key object, and now if I'm gonna align it, you can see that everything is fine. And I can do the same for the horizontal axis. It works. So if you want to align multiple objects to one object, Please make sure that you group them correctly, and that way you can make sure that everything is gonna be fine. If you want to go inside the group, reminder, double click on this object. Now you can move this eye, this eye. If you want to move something inside those eyes, you can double click one more time. And now you have full control of your eye. You can move this one, this one, this one, then double click outside, or click over here at any icon you want to go out from this isolation mode, one step above or under, and that's how it works. Quite complicated topic, I understand, but you'll get used to it because you'll use it a lot. Now let's talk about something else, and by this something else I mean horizontal flipping or mirroring your object, because sometimes you need to understand how you can flip your object to the other side to make it work, or by a vertical axis or by horizontal axis, and that's quite easy to do in this software. Just click on your object, and over here in the properties panel you'll see that you have a lot of panels, a lot of settings over here, because as you remember, this panel adapts to your selected object. Right now I selected this group and I have settings for this group. Let's hide layers, let's hide line panel because we don't need this panel right now. I'm just going to move it right here. Align, I'm going to move it right here. And what about properties panel? Over here you can see a lot of stuff that's going on. First setting that you can see is X, Y, W, and H. Those X and Y parameters are quite easy because they determine your location of your object, selected objects, in the artboard area. If you want to move it, for example, from 1300 to 1200, you're gonna just type it over here. And as you can see, you moved with the X axis, horizontal axis basically, to the left. If you're gonna increase it, 1500, now it's moved to the right. The same for Y, minus to 300. That's all. So basically it's position of your object. Second one, W and H, it's width and height. So you can adjust width and height of your object. Now, rotate. This one is the same. If you just go outside of this object, you can see this small icon, you can rotate this one, and over here you see that you rotated this object by 16 degrees. You can choose 0, you can use any preset that you see over here, so that's it, nothing else. And now the most important stuff is those two icons. First icon allows you to flip horizontally, click, and now your object is flipped. And the second option allows you to flip vertically, click. That's all. If you're gonna click it one more time, you're gonna go back to the previous setting, here and here, and that's it. If you wanna flip it, you know how to do that. And the next one is rulers, because without them, sometimes it might be quite complicated for you to work with this software, because you need to make sure that everything is aligned, everything is located in the place where it was in other artboard, and it's just easier for you. So to show those rulers, you can go in two ways. First way is the best one, just hotkey, Command R on your keyboard. As you can see, now we have those rulers. And the second one is go to Window, and here you can see rulers and hide or show rulers. And here's the hotkey for this command. Now we have all those rulers, and how they work is quite simple. You need to hold with your left mouse button and move it to the place where you want to release it, for example 100 pixels. Now we have this guide over here, which allows us to make sure that every object on our scene is aligned properly. Now everything in our project can be aligned to this vertical guide. And the second way is just select a horizontal line. I'm gonna select this one, move it to the 100 position over here, and that's it. Now we have a second guideline. You can use it quite often for save zone, for printing, for web usage, for some icons, for logotypes, you name it. So that's not a problem, and you can use it anytime. Those guides are not going to be exported or printed, they will be invisible for real usage. But if you want to hide them, that's quite easy to do. Go to View, now Guides, and here you can hide guides. As you can see, we have this hotkey that helps us to hide them and show them anytime. If you want to make sure that you cannot move them, because sometimes if you have different settings, you can move those guides, you can do that by going to Window, Guides, and here you have Unlock Guides with the hotkey. Now I can move them, change their position, and if I'm gonna press this hotkey one more time, I'm no longer able to move them. So it's quite easy to do. I recommend you to remember those hotkeys because with them you can work more efficiently, and in real-time project every second is important because you can save a lot of time by your lifetime of working, and that's how you can do that. Remember, if you forgot any hotkey, you can go to Window and take a look at those hotkeys, or you can go to Settings and take a look at those hotkeys in the Adobe Illustrator settings section. And now let me show you how to export the project, because that's fourth video and we're talking about export only now. Yes, that's how it works. Go to File, now Save As, and as you can see we have a lot of settings. We have Save, we have Save As, we have Save a Copy, we have Export. Those are for different purposes, but mostly you'll use Save As or Save a Copy if you have newer version of Illustrator. Mostly you'll use Save As. Go to Save As. Now here you can see that I have two options, Save to Creative Cloud or on your computer. You can decide which works better for you. I'm gonna save it to my computer. And here you can see that you have basic Save As location. Here you can choose your format, AI, EPS, AT, PDF, SVGZ, SVG. And as you can see, you have only vector options. You cannot save with this option to JPEG. So only person with some vector software, for example, Illustrator or CorelDRAW, they will be able to open those projects. If they don't have those software options, they'll not be able to open it. So if you want to save any project to JPEG, simply go to File, and here Export, Export As, or Export for Screens. Let's talk about export for screen options, because this is mostly used for most of scenarios that I can imagine for Illustrator. Whenever you click export for screens, you can see all artboards that you created. I have several of them because we're gonna talk about this later, that you can create several artboards for different purposes. For example, you have one logotype in one color in one artboard, second logotype with a second color on different artboards, so you can export them separately. Or you have visit card, front page and the rear page, you have both together and you can export them separately. That's how it works. And here you can select your artboard that you want to export, and on the right side you can choose which exact artboard you want to select. You want to choose export to location, just click on this icon and select your export to location. Here you can choose do you want to create subfolders or no, and here you can just change format of your export. For example, I want to save it in JPEG, as well as I want to save it in, for example, PDF. Now suffix, you can just remove this one, that's useless. It's just gonna add a name to your project, and if you want to change name of your project, you can do that over here, click and change the name, and now press export artboard, and it's gonna export this to the selected by you location over here. And that's it. That's how you save your project. If you want a vector, go to Save As option. If you want a JPEG option, you go to Export and choose anything from this section. Mostly I'm using Export for Screen section. And that's it for this video, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and write something in the comments, because that's very important for YouTube in nowadays. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.